Hey, what's up guys? In this video we are going to be analyzing some plugins. I'm going to show you the usefulness of particular tools that allow you to analyze audio. With these tools you'll be able to actually see what a particular plugin is doing to color your audio. You can be able to tell if a synth is aliasing or not. You can look at the actual waveform, see what a filter is doing, a whole bunch of things. It's super cool. You can also see like noise floors and like kind of jittery things that happen on the low end of audio, some interesting things. But yeah, what I used to do is I used to use a tool called RS-MET, but I have since graduated to Melda Production, and I'm going to go into Tools and then drop in a multi-analyzer. So this is a fantastic tool. And we're going to be focusing on spectrum and oscilloscope. So the spectrum is very useful. This allows you to see like the entire frequency. And it looks familiar because it's the same thing that is overlaid on Ableton's EQ8. So let's open up Serum. Serum is actually a very, very high quality synth. But we can simulate something called aliasing within it. And you kind of have to work hard to do it. Well, not really, but you kind of have to purposefully do it. Aliasing is essentially like reflections of the high frequencies, like bending and folding back into the audible range. So how you combat that is you kind of oversample. So it's like 44 kilohertz. You oversample that to 88. So you have, all those reflections or whatever on the very far end that's not even heard. So let's simulate that. I'm going to go and I'm going to create a sine wave, a mathematical sine wave. Serum has the best sine wave, by the way. Right? And what a sine wave is it's just a fundamental. That's all it is. If you can see it here. So I'm going to go take smoothness off. Then maybe go super resolution. Right? And that is our fundamental. As opposed to, say, a saw, which has a lot of harmonics. But it still has the fundamental right here. All right, so just this brief rundown of what a spectrum analyzer does. So we have a single fundamental. So with this, we can see what a lot of things are doing. Because anything that deviates from this, you can really see what the the color is doing. So let's simulate aliasing. So we're going to go to global and then go to oscillator settings, set it to ×1. So this is basically no aliasing. Usually it's set to, this is no oversampling, right? So it matches your DAW or whatever. 2 times takes that, and yeah, it doubles the resolution of the audio, and then you can go ×4, which kind of overkill, but whatever. So let's simulate what happens with aliasing, and we can see this here. So I'm going to see that. Right, those are those reflections that I'm talking about, and they become more and more pronounced as we go up in frequency. Let's go up more. Oh God, that is terrible. So effectively, we have broked Ableton. We broke the entire channel. Holy crap, that's cool. So that's what aliasing does. We've effectively peaked and broke Ableton. So that kind of simulates what occurs when you oversample. That is a catastrophic failure. So yeah, basically, anyway. So with that being said, if we go back to Serum over here, and then we go back to that sine wave, which we can do super quick. Right? No aliasing there. None of those reflections, right? But we go back to ×1, and then we go to smoothing off. Sorry, I'll just go back. See all those? We go 2 times. Gone. Back here. Gone. And it's worth noting that all the effects are oversampled by default. All of them except Redux, or the what's it called? Not rectify, downsample, because you can't oversample downsampling. Oversampling emulates the downsampling. So that is a way to kind of test a VST or a synth. Massive tends to alias quite a bit. Serum does not, because you just throw more math at it essentially. The JP8080 behind me, the sound of it is the sound. What contributes to the sound of the JP is aliasing. So sometimes you want aliasing, sometimes you don't. You don't want to crash Ableton or confuse your channel. Anyway, so there's that. So that's pretty cool. And that is with that the spectrum. But let's go to oscilloscope. Right. Oscilloscope just basically shows you what the oscillator is doing. So what it does is it kind of figures out the pitch that it is, it overlays, and it kind of tracks what's going on. And you can, physically see what's going on in your oscillator. So yeah, we'll just do this. Right, and all that. So yeah, accurate representation of what is occurring in your track here. So a really interesting thing is a oscilloscope. It won't detect distortion or coloration. Like we can, kind of color the sound, which I'm going to get into a little bit. Coloring it basically means like not changing or filtering. Well, I guess you could be filtering, but you're not actually kind of changing anything. You're just feeding the sound through something that would affect it. So a guitar pedal distortion colors the sound. It doesn't actually change the like what's going on in terms of frequency, but it'll color it. So let's color it with something that is pretty powerful in Serum, the drive. We're doing kind of rounding off. Right, you can barely see it, but you can hear there's a lot more going on, and that's where the spectrum comes in. Right, and that guy right there is a harmonic. Right, something that wasn't there is now there. And this is what a lot of plugins do, and I'll give you an example. So let's open up another tool by Melda, which is an oscillator. Right. Just an oscillator used for testing purposes. So right now it's a sine wave, and this is reminiscent of like the sine wave generators that you would feed through something to see what's going on. So right now, just a sine wave, not much else going on. So let's add something. Let's the waves is good. Let's go one of the API EQs. All right, drop that on. Do we notice anything? Not a whole lot. But let's bring down the resolution. All right, so now we see somewhat of a noise floor. I'm not well versed in computer science, but I think that's like Ableton's kind of noise floor. It has something to do with the summing or something like that. This is like well below anything that you'll hear. So I'm just gonna kind of have it like that. So let's turn on the API again. Nothing's happening. Let's go down. It's interesting. Okay. All right, so this is interesting to me. So what's happening is Ableton actually has somewhat of a gate. And once like a gate built into all the channels, so once something is kind of below a certain threshold, it'll immediately just cut off the track. And I think this is done to not accumulate the bit noise, the digital, the noise that's inherent in audio, because the intersample, whatever. Again, I'm not a freaking expert in this. So yeah, we turn up the output and we have a bit of noise here. We can turn off analog, no longer there. So let's turn on the oscillator again. Right, so you'll notice you'll notice what's really interesting is there's our harmonic. You can actually see it. Let's turn that on. 2 harmonics. I'll actually pause it. So you have your main fundamental here and this equalizer without anything being touched adds these harmonics here, right? And this is part of the whole analog modeling thing where like nothing in the analog world is truly passive. So you'll have like the coloration of sound. So if you notice, we are just using a sine wave. All right, a very uncomplicated, like the purest sound ever. There's one fundamental, and these two things are acting upon that. But if you have, like you remember, let's say we have we'll go a triangle. A triangle is a bit easier to see. Also, triangles are very useful as well, and we can see that here. Everything is well spaced out compared to a saw, which is a bit more chaotic. Triangles are very useful. And fun fact, triangles tend to break emulations. For some reason, modeling something that has a triangle wave passing through it is actually very difficult. I don't know why. Again, it's that whole computer. That's why I don't develop plugins. I leave that to people who are infinitely more smarter than me. So there's this. So all these little peaks here, all these sine waves, which essentially they are, will now have harmonics. And this is where you get the tone of, for example, the API, right? You get that tone, which is pretty cool. So let's take a look at that. Look at all those bastards. So in between each of these, yeah, you got a harmonic, and there are even and there are odd harmonics, and they add to your sound. So you know what I mean? Like, what happened was back in the day, everyone moved from these clunky analog desks that had noise and they added harmonics and stuff, and everyone moved to like in the box kind of digital processing, like a perfect mathematical EQ that wasn't analog. It was 100% digital, but it missed something. And what it missed was these harmonics that these pieces of vintage gear added. And it's, it's just it's one of those things. So what we do is we incorporate the digital, but then we have the analog. So like, yeah, that's why analog gear is popular still. Printing to tape, for example, adds this kind of coloration. Again, this is coloration, and you barely even hear it, or do you? Can you actually hear? Yeah. When you account for like the difference in amplitude, maybe you can hear it. I don't know. We'd have to do some tests, but there you have it. It's one of those magical things. And, they captured it in there. Let's look at another one. Like, you can really see what's going on. So this gentleman here, obviously modeled from an analog piece of gear. Compresses, but obviously adds color, right? And that's why distressors are popular. That's why those SSL things are, oh yeah, SSL, let's do that. I think this one's a little bit more clever in terms of ableist processing. But yeah, the glue compressor. Let's just see what's going on here. Right? I keep on wanting to press the stop button, but I have to turn that on and off. When you bring down the threshold, it adds those harmonics in. Right, it's just fun to kind of see what things are doing. Also, yeah, you can just see what the Redux is doing. What does Redux do? It emulates that aliasing downsampling effect. Right. So, yeah. Oh, also, it looks cool on the oscilloscope as well. Same with bit reduction. Anyway, hope you guys give this a try. It is by Melda. Go back up, show you. Melda Production, and it's the M Multi-Analyzer. And yeah, I really enjoy it. Has a great spectrum, and we're not even, getting into, all these other things here. But yeah, spectrum and oscilloscope. Go through your plugins, see what's going on. Select a sine wave. So I'll give you an example. All right. So we can take a look at. I actually don't have a synth. I don't think like any synth that aliases. There's no excuse for that, in my opinion. All right. So let's select a sine wave. Right. Not aliasing. No aliasing. Is there a way to make an alias? No. So yeah, there you go. Avenger does an alias, and yeah, it's just one of those things. So anyway, long enough video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned stuff, and take care. Have a good one. Check the links in the description, etc., etc. All right, bye. Bye.